Keanu Reeves steps into a luxurious restaurant in the heart of the city, dressed in unassuming, slightly wrinkled clothes that suggest a casual day. He selects a discreet table, clearly aiming to blend in, while the sparkle of crystal chandeliers casts a warm glow across the space. Before he has the chance to place his order, a waitress approaches him with a look of disdain and a posture radiating arrogance. "Are you sure you can afford to be here?" she asks with biting sarcasm, her words loud enough for nearby patrons to overhear. What unfolds next not only leaves everyone in the restaurant stunned, but reveals a truth that changes everything. Before we dive into the story, tell us where you're watching from. If you enjoy stories like this, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Celeste Royale restaurant was a beacon of sophistication in Manhattan. Located on one of the city's most prestigious avenues, its expansive windows framed a view of neon-lit streets lined with high-end boutiques and luxury cars cruising by. Inside, every detail had been meticulously curated to exude elegance. Celeste Royale wasn't just a restaurant. It was a destination for those who sought to be admired. Amidst this grandeur, Sophia, one of Celeste Royale's most seasoned waitresses, glided through the dining room with practiced ease. Her flawless uniform and meticulously styled hair mirrored her confidence and poise. Her perfectly styled bun and crisp uniform projected an air of efficiency and control. To Sophia, working at there wasn't merely a job. It was a status symbol, one she proudly mentioned whenever the opportunity arose. However, Sophia had a darker side. Her pride often bordered on arrogance. She had a knack for quickly sizing up guests, mentally categorizing them based on their attire, demeanor, and overall appearance. Some people just don't belong here, she often thought to herself. The restaurant's glass doors swung open smoothly as a man walked in, dressed in worn jeans, a simple shirt, plain, comfortable attire. His unassuming presence contrasted starkly with the opulence around him. Keanu Reeves, despite being one of Hollywood's most famous actors, had a reserved demeanor that stood out in the extravagance of Manhattan. At first glance, he seemed like just another ordinary customer. Sophia was stationed at the reception desk, busy, discussing a VIP reservation with another staff member. When she noticed Keanu, she abruptly paused, her gaze narrowing as she assessed him with thinly veiled disdain. He didn't fit the profile of Celeste Royale's typical clientele. Without bothering to hide her reaction, she tilted her head and gave him a slow once-over, her eyes lingering on his scuffed boots. "Good evening," she said in a clipped tone, forcing a smile that vanished almost immediately. "How can I help you?" "I'd like a table, please," Keanu replied, his voice calm and polite. Sophia arched an eyebrow, as if he'd just made an outrageous request. Her expression seemed to say, "How dare he?" Crossing her arms, she added, "Are you sure you're in the right place? This is a very exclusive restaurant." Still unfazed, Keanu maintained his pleasant demeanor. "Yes, this is the place," he said with quiet confidence. Sophia let out a short, incredulous laugh and shook her head. "All right, give me a moment to check something," she replied tersely. Turning away without any semblance of courtesy, she headed to the reception office, where she accessed the reservation system. Typing his name with exaggerated flair, she found no reservation under Keanu Reeves. Rolling her eyes, she returned to the dining room, visibly annoyed. "As I thought, you don't have a reservation," she announced, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "We do have a few tables available, but just so you know, this isn't a casual dining spot." Keanu remained unperturbed, his calm expression unchanged. "I'd still like to dine here," he replied evenly. Sophia sighed dramatically, grabbing a menu with exaggerated force. "All right, but I'll have to seat you in an area that's appropriate. Follow me," she said curtly, leading him briskly through the dining room without a backward glance. Instead of seating him in the center, where the golden chandeliers highlighted the restaurant's grandeur, she guided him to the farthest, least appealing corner near the kitchen. The sounds of clinking dishes and muffled staff chatter created a stark contrast to the rest of the dining room's refined ambiance. "Here you go," she said, dropping the menu onto the table with a loud thud. "This table should suit you perfectly. It's nice and private." Keanu looked at the table, then at Sophia, his slight smile never wavering. "Thank you," he said calmly. Sophia crossed her arms, narrowing her eyes as if trying to determine whether he was being sarcastic or clueless. "You're welcome," she replied, her voice dripping with insincerity. "Just so you know, we usually reserve these tables for special cases, but since there's nothing else booked tonight, you can have it." Spinning on her heel, she walked away before he could respond. As the evening progressed, Sophia's behavior became increasingly rude. She delayed taking Keanu's order, openly mocked his choices, and repeatedly ignored him while prioritizing other patrons. Despite her attempts to provoke a reaction, Keanu's serene demeanor never wavered, much to her growing frustration. But little did she know, her condescending attitude and blatant disrespect had not gone unnoticed by others in the room. The elderly gentleman seated at a nearby table sipped his wine, observing the situation with a growing look of disapproval. Under his breath, he muttered, "This has gone too far." Meanwhile, Sophia approached Keanu's table with an exaggeratedly sweet yet insincere smile. "I hope you're enjoying your evening," she said, her tone laced with sarcasm. "It's always refreshing to have different kinds of people here. It certainly adds a unique flair to the ambience." Keanu fixed his gaze on her, his voice steady yet deliberate. "Different? Could you elaborate on what you mean by that?" Caught off guard, Sophia let out a nervous laugh, struggling to maintain her composure. "Oh, I didn't mean anything by it. Just that we don't often have guests like yourself." "Guests like me?" Keanu's calm tone seemed to unsettle her further. Before the exchange could escalate, a voice interrupted them. "Perhaps I should handle this differently," came the sudden interjection. Sophia blinked, confused, and turned to see the restaurant manager approaching. A man in his 40s with immaculate posture and an air of authority. He surveyed the room briefly before locking eyes with Keanu. The moment he recognized him, his demeanor shifted entirely. He approached quickly, ignoring Sophia altogether. "Mr. Reeves," he exclaimed, his tone brimming with respect. "I wasn't aware you'd be joining us tonight. It's an absolute honor to have you here." Sophia's confident facade faltered as the reality of the situation dawned on her. Flustered, she stammered, I didn't realize. I thought." The manager's stern voice cut her off. "Thought what?" Sophia? That this guest, who happens to be one of the restaurant's owners, didn't deserve the same respect as everyone else?" His tone was low, but the weight of his words drained the color from Sophia's face. Desperately searching for a defense, she mumbled, He didn't say who he was, and well, he looked." "Enough," the manager said firmly, his eyes narrowing. "It's not about who someone is or isn't. Every guest deserves respect. That's the foundation of this establishment." Nearby diners whispered among themselves, their hushed conversations filled with judgment and surprise. The elderly man nodded approvingly, while others exchanged glances of silent agreement. A man seated with his wife murmured, "I knew there was something different about him. There's a presence you just can't ignore." His wife nodded, adding, "And look at how he's handling it with such grace." Sophia, visibly shaken, excused herself and hurried away, avoiding the judgmental gazes of those around her. Keanu, calm as ever, rose from his seat and looked around the room. All eyes were on him, and the atmosphere was thick with anticipation. With a voice both steady and resonant, he addressed the crowd. This restaurant was built on the principle of creating a space where everyone feels welcome, regardless of their background, attire, or station in life. Sadly, that ideal wasn't upheld today, but moments like this provide an opportunity to reflect and grow. The room fell silent, his words resonating deeply. It's easy to judge others based on their outward appearance, their clothes, the car they drive, or where they live. But what truly defines us is how we choose to treat one another. Kindness, compassion, and understanding go a long way. He paused, his hands slipping into his pockets as his tone softened. When we allow ourselves to look beyond the surface, we find something far more meaningful, the shared humanity that connects us all. In the stillness that followed, Sophia returned, her head bowed and eyes glistening. Her voice was quiet, but laden with remorse. I never thought about it that way before, she admitted. I was so focused on appearances, on maintaining an image, that I forgot what really matters. I'm so sorry. I promise, Mr. Reeves, I'll do better. Keanu offered her a small but encouraging smile. That promise isn't to me, Sophia. It's to yourself. Change comes from within. As he turned to leave, the diners broke into hushed conversations, some visibly moved by the encounter. The elderly gentleman raised his glass in a silent toast, and Keanu nodded in acknowledgement before stepping outside. Under the glittering Manhattan lights, he paused at the restaurant's entrance. His soft smile returned as he reflected on the evening. It wasn't just about the events at Celeste Royale. It was about fostering spaces where everyone feels seen, valued, and respected. In moments like these, Keanu understood that true change comes not just from reshaping the world around us, but from reshaping who we are as individuals. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe for more life stories that challenge and inspire us to be better. Let's keep the conversation going, and comment below.